Hi there, my name is Andrei Zinkevich and I'm the founder of GetLead, and today I want to talk about the full funnel lead generation and sales. So I want to share the proven process how to build an effective lead generation machine and effective sales process for your company. I will show you some examples. I will show you the most common mistakes B2B companies make so you can replicate this framework in your business and you'll be able to create a steady flow of high quality B2B leads. So stay tuned. And let's start with the most common marketing challenges. So recently, HubSpot, who is in charge of State of Inbound report, surveyed B2B marketers and sales team from all around the world, and they asked, what are your top companies marketing challenges? So in this chart you see that the most common challenges are generating traffic and leads, proving the ROI of our marketing activities, securing enough budget, identifying the right technologies for our needs, managing our website, targeting content for an international audience, and so on. But basically let's look on the three biggest marketing challenges. So it's generating traffic and leads, proving the ROI of our marketing activities, and securing enough budget. What do these challenges mean? In simple words, these facts mean that marketers aren't sure and can't prove the efficiency of what they're doing. We can also simply translate it that companies don't know what to do, how to scale their business, how to create a predictive and steady flow of quality leads, and that's why they can't generate enough traffic, they can't generate enough leads to fill in the sales pipeline, and they can't prove the ROI of their marketing activities. So actually, when I start working with companies as B2B marketing consultant, I always ask before starting the cooperation about the existing sales processes, about the previous lead generation campaigns, what has gone, what campaigns were effective, which campaigns generated the highest possible ROI, which campaigns were ineffective, and why. And I always ask about the customer journey and the sales process in this company. And in case when I'm asking about the customer journey, in most common cases I don't get reply because the companies don't have a documented customer journey, but they eagerly share with me the sales process they have in their company, and this sales process is always company-centric. So remember that famous film called The Boiler Room, where the guys were cold calling the people and trying to persuade them to buy some stocks, and when it was like the junior sales reps, or so-called biz devs, business development managers, they tried to call people, they tried to persuade them, and when the person agreed, so let's say this person was qualified and was eager to talk about buying the stocks, the biz devs, they gave the contact to the senior sales rep, or let's say sales manager, field sales manager, doesn't matter how we call it, and this person was in charge of closing the deal. So this is how most companies describe their sales process. So they have a demand generation team, they run some paid acquisition campaigns, probably pay-per-click or Google display ads, they maybe running some ads on Facebook, maybe trying to run some ads on LinkedIn and so on. And for sure they have outbound processes in place, so they try to outreach and send call emails to as many leads as possible, and they have events, and they try to play the game of numbers when it comes to outbound outreach. So they try to spam as maximum people as possible, trying to get some positive response. And in case if they see that somebody responded to the outbound emails, they have a discovery call, and if this person was qualified, and if this person has, let's say, we can apply the most primitive sales qualification framework called BANT, Budget, Authority, Needs, and Timeline. So if this person was qualified, they are sending the proposal, and then we have deal won or deal lost status. And that's pretty all. So that's why most companies, like I mentioned, are limited to several channels like pay-per-click campaigns or outbound. And in most cases, outbound is very primitive, is very annoying, like you see on the screenshot. So people are sending cold emails like, have you thought about hiring an offshore help, and then decided not to go that path because of horror stories. So some great facts which I really doesn't matter, and here we can see a bad qualification. They didn't even thought about whether I need these services or not, and definitely I'm not a target audience. And the same on LinkedIn. So people try to send you a connection request, and when you accept the connection request, you get this spammy message like, I look into mobile apps development, and I'm always wondering, why do they think I was in need of any kind of development. So this is really weird how the spammy people are going. They try to persuade me to share my contacts, to schedule a call with them, and so on. And that's why these outbound campaigns suck, and that's why that most sales process in B2B companies and most lead generation campaigns are so ineffective. Because if you'll see, let me go to the previous slide. So if you'll see this company-centric sales funnel, sales process, if I'll ask you where are your where do you see the biggest drops, people can say, so like we see biggest drops like in from discovery calls to proposal, or maybe from proposals to deal vault. So the deal closure ratio is low, and they just try to think that probably the quality of salespeople is low, or maybe the biz devs are low quality, and so on, and they don't understand actually why they have a broken sales cycle, and they have no clue how to improve it. So we'll talk about this later. And the question is, what was missed in that customer-centric sales process? So what's missing? First, we don't see a buying committee here, and you know that in B2B we have a long sales cycle, we have several decision makers. So by buying committee I mean several people who influence the decision making process, who take part in the research, who negotiate, who approve, who consider your proposal. So all these people are involved into the negotiation process, and I call these people buying committee. Buying process. So, and if you'll take a look at customer-centric sales process, you'll see that we focus on what we want to do. So we want to send some spammy emails, or we want to try some, let's say, creative ads, and try to persuade people to schedule a meeting with our team, with our sales reps, but we have no clue how these leads are buying the products or services like ours. So we don't focus on their buying process, and that's why we can't improve our sales and lead generation process, because we don't understand what exactly didn't work. Next step, bottlenecks and blockage points. So, for example, let's pretend that you have like your biz dev generated a meeting for your sales rep. So sales rep ran a discover call. He actually had a conversation with a decision maker. So let's pretend the ideal situation. And actually, after the discover call, the decision maker agreed for a pilot project, for example, or like to start working on a small scale, or doesn't matter what they sell, so it depends. And actually, he asked for the proposal. And you send the proposal, and suddenly you don't get any reply, you don't get any feedback, and after several weeks you get a reject from the site. So the prospect, the lead, rejects your proposal, and you are wondering what's went wrong. So basically you can assume that the proposal language was wrong, or the sales rep did a bad qualification during the discover call, or maybe something else. But if you, for example, if you know the buying process, and if you understand the buying motivation, you can, and if you understand how do your leads buy the products like yours, you can assume that with the proposal, the decision maker, or let's say the champion inside that account who sends the proposal to the decision maker, he was he was by default expecting that you'll send also, for example, a budget justification or some kind of case study or a calculator, so this champion can prove that this, like, buying your product would be a good investment for this company, and you didn't send it. That's why the deal was lost. So to know, to understand this, you need to understand the buying process and the possible blockage points you need to solve during this buying process. And the last thing is, this is what I called moving through the black hole consideration. So this is a situation which I described previously, when you have several people who are involved in the negotiation process, and you, for example, you had a negotiation with, let's say, a champion inside this account, so a person who is interested in your product, and this person agreed to work with you, but need to get an approval from the CEO or from the CFO. And you send the proposal, and you don't know what's happening inside this organization. So your manager just told that he also sent your proposal to the decision maker, and he is waiting for the approval. So we, from like the process I have described, we have no control on the sales process, we have no clue, we don't understand how we can influence the sales process, so we are just waiting for the feedback, and the feedback could be like, I got an approval and we continue with your product or with your service, or like, I didn't get an approval, so sorry guys, we need to stop here. And we have no idea how to move through this black hole consideration. So what all do these facts mean? These facts mean that you depend, if you have this customer sales, company sales process, company-centric sales process and sales funnel, in most cases you depend on several big customers. So if they cancel the cooperation with your company will lose a considerable part of revenue. So that's why it's really important for you to fill in the sales pipeline regularly, because otherwise you'll be lack of cash. And the second reason that you don't realize what is working and what doesn't work, like I described on the previous slide, you don't have a scalable and predictive lead generation and sales processes, so your revenue doesn't increase or even decline. You also need to focus on quick win tactics like cold emails, LinkedIn spam connection requests, or emails to fill in sales pipeline, which lead to database burnout. So you need, like I mentioned, every time you need to feed your people, to feed your teams, you need to bring a new fresh blood to your sales pipeline. So that's why you don't have time for some strategical campaigns, you don't have time to prepare some strategical marketing messages or marketing materials, and you need to only play the game of numbers and spam people massively. You don't also nurture and sell to leads who aren't sales ready, which means you are missing up to 97% of opportunities, and we'll talk about this a bit later. So you'll see that in this process, if the lead didn't react to your pay-per-click campaign, let's say to your paid acquisition campaigns or to your outbound campaigns, you don't nurture them, you don't try to build a relationship with them, and you simply lose the opportunities. You focus only on sales and don't expand business with the existing customers. So it's also the biggest problem I see while working with B2B companies. I see that when the deal is closed, they simply don't focus on expansion, and they're just trying to focus to bring a new lead, a new customer to their company, instead of creating a great case study, instead of working on customer success, helps this customer to get the maximum from your product or service and expand inside this account, trying to upsell some services, trying to upsell some products, or just work on new projects. And without this, if these processes, I mean post-sales service and expansion, if these services aren't documented, like in many companies, you need to like a new blood, a new fresh blood in your sales pipeline every month, and it is costing you more in sales and marketing to acquire your customers than you make from each sale. As well, you don't understand the gaps in your sales funnel and waste marketing budget. So in this case, like I mentioned, your pay-per-click campaigns might not work because you don't understand the buying process. And if you, for example, instead of driving the traffic to, let's say, a landing page where you suggest to schedule a demo call, you can run pay-per-click campaigns to white paper, and then get the contacts and nurture leads, and then qualify them and try to sell. And because of the complexity buying process, because your buyer they have some concerns, they have some doubts, they have some standard research process, and they need some proof, some information before starting to consider your proposal. And we'll talk about this later in this presentation. The last thing is that you do lots of marketing activities, but they don't seem to be clearly leading towards a sale, and that's why most marketers tend to answer that their challenges are actually, the second challenge is to prove the ROI of their marketing activities. So they maybe write some content, they do some webinars, they run email newsletter, but all these activities aren't aligned with sales, and they are not clearly leading to sales, and that's why marketing is unable to show the ROI on their programs. So, what's the solution? The solution is to create a full funnel or customer-centric marketing and sales machine. So it's by machine, I mean the lead generation and sales process. So to describe the full funnel approach, I use this marketing hourglass. I adapted the conception which was preliminary created by John Young from Duct Tape Marketing. So I adapted his marketing hourglass conception to B2B to describe the full funnel marketing. So you'll see that we have two separate processes. The first one, let's say, is a marketing part where we need to attract attention, to build the credibility, to get the contact and nurture leads and qualify it. And then we have a sales part where we need to close a deal, where we need to bring a post-sales service to help the customer get the maximum from the product from the service, and then we need to expand, we need to upsell, or we need to get a referral from that customer and retain this customer. So when you apply full funnel marketing, your lead generation and sales processes always will be based on your customer buying process. So it's not like you just figure it out that you need to send outbound emails and suggest a discovery call and then proposal. So you, first of all, you figure out the buying process inside your ideal customers, and then you adapt, you create your sales process based on the buying process. And I will show how to do it step by step in this presentation. As well, marketing is tightly aligned with sales, and every activity has a clear purpose of moving the prospect further down the funnel. So you'll see in this process, we step by step, like we have several stages. In this case, we have 7 stages, and all the activities are aligned to moving, actually all the activities are aligned around moving the lead further to the next steps in this sales and lead generation and sales process. So as well, we see that we have here lead nurturing, where you need to nurture and address the concerns, objections, and doubts of the entire buying committee. So we try to engage with all people who are somehow influencing the decision making, who can block the deal, and we are engaging with all of them. You also take control on the post-service and account expansion processes, which are not normally documented in most B2B companies, but here we see that these are also, let's say, these are 2 critical stages where you can retain your customer and where you can generate, where you can upsell and expand your business, or you can generate a referral from your existing customer. So these processes also need to be documented. And as well, you have a clear view on what is working and what needs to be fixed. So let me share and let me show you how to build a full funnel marketing process. So the first step is always a market segmentation. Actually, to figure out the most, I get the question how to figure out the most promising market segments. So here is a very brief description on what you should to do. You should figure out, let's say, you should first of all, you should brainstorm, based on your historical data. You should put down the maximum marketing segments who can buy your product, and then evaluate them on the criteria I will give you. So I use the next criteria: competition, lifetime cycle, segment growth, amount, lifetime value, virality, experience, closeness, and solvency and profitability. So by these 10 criteria, you can evaluate and figure out the most promising market segments, which will give you a clue what to focus on, because unfortunately in B2B you can't target a broad market, otherwise your lead generation will always suck. So this is really important, and if you want to learn more about market segmentation, you can visit getleader.com/market segmentation workshop and learn more about this. But basically the first step is to figure out these market segments. By profitability, I mean how much money is this, let's say, the margin which you have while working with this market segment. Solvency means whether this market segment has money or no. Let me back to the first one. Competition means whether the market segment is very competitive or no, and whether the competition is strong or no. By amount I mean how many leads are inside this market segment. Lifetime cycle means whether this lead can stay with you for years or it's just a one-time deal. Segment growth is this segment increasing or declining. Lifetime value, it's a bit different from lifetime cycle because you can sell, you can have one-time deals, but huge 6-7 figure contracts, and that's why lifetime value is another indicator which we try to evaluate. Or we can have a customer for years but have let's say our business model is monthly recurring revenue, so we sell, for example, a low ticket SaaS and sell it for 6-5 years, and the LTV could be less from one-time huge deals. Experience, so do we have the experience working with this market segment virality, whether the customers from this market segment are willing to refer our company, give the recommendation, or they prefer to work under the non-disclosure agreement. Closeness, how easy is to get to the decision maker, and solvency, like I mentioned, whether they have money or no. Profitability is your margin. So the next step when you figure out the most promising market segment is to develop an ideal customer profile, and I see this mistake everywhere. I didn't have any project where I didn't see this mistake. So companies tend to create some kind of universal buyer persona by uniting the data from different customers from different market segments, but all customers aren't equal. So you have some core customers who generate you more money, who are much more profitable for your company, and you also should remember that different market segments have different needs and different buying process. That's why you need to entirely separate these market segments and create a separate ideal customer profile for every market segment. So as for ICP, I have a blog post called the Ideal Customer Profile, and you also see this article in the Content Hub. So as for the ICP, you have very standard criteria like location, team size, tech stack, etc. But I suggest you to focus on and enrich your ideal customer profile with the next question: what leads them to buy products like yours? So with the help while answering this question, you'll understand what motivates them to buy products like services like yours. What are the triggers that motivate them to start looking for the solution? What factors influence their purchasing decision? And this way you can figure out what could be your value proposition or what you should point out or underline in your marketing messages. What are the current challenges that are related to your business? So this answering this question will give you some idea what kind of content your customers or your leads need, how you can attract their attention and generate more value to them. What are the problems your product solves for them? So it's definitely people don't buy the product, they buy the solution of their problems, and you need to understand what problems you solve for them. What might happen if these problems won't be solved? And when you answer this question, you have an idea of their pain points. Why did they choose your company? And this is great how you can polish your value proposition when you understand your benefits, the reasons why do they choose your company. What do they love most about your product or service? Another reason how another information you can use to polish your value proposition. What social media do they regularly use? And this way you can figure out what social media you can use for targeting your prospects and what social media you should avoid, because in many companies I see like when they hire a new marketer or agency and that also, for example, let's try the Instagram ads, and it's really rare to hear this when companies try or just eager to waste some money on Instagram without realizing whether their target audience is on this platform or no. Which industry blogs, websites, or influencers are they following? And this information will give you an idea what industry blogs you can use, for example, for guest posting or for some other activities you can use to attract the attention of your target leads. Who is also involved in the negotiation process or with whom they consult before buying products like yours. And this way you can understand the buying committee structure, who could be an influencer inside your target accounts, who can block the deal, and you'll have a clear picture with what job roles you should engage if you want to close the deal successfully. So the next step is define the buying committee, because like I mentioned previously, on B2B markets we don't have it's very rare. It's a rare condition when we have only one decision maker. So in most cases we have several decision makers or several people who engage with our company, who somehow influence the decision-making process, and our goal is to define the buying committee. So you need to expand the ICP to do job roles who are involved in the negotiation process. First is identify buying committee structure. Champions, these are the people who let's say, who research the solution like yours, who need the solutions like products or services like yours, and who negotiate with your company, and who these are the first people you can build a relationship, and how my friend Carl Karafat told you can make your first fan inside your target account. So second group of people are decision makers, so it's obvious these are the people who can approve or disapprove the deal. Influencers, these are the people who didn't engage with your company or could simply not engage at all with your company, but they can somehow influence the decision-making process. Brief example, you have agreed with a chief marketing officer a new platform, and the CMO also got an approval from CEO, but then for example, the CTO or VP of IT blocked the deal because he told that this platform is a bad fit to the IT infrastructure. So this is an example of influencers, but at the same time, you had a head of sales who told this is a great idea to install this platform because it will somehow also help the salespeople be more productive and will help to align sales and marketing activities. And you didn't have any conversation with salespeople or with head of the sales, but he influenced the deal. And blockers, like I mentioned, the VP of IT told that this platform is a bad fit to the existing IT environment, and he could somehow block the deal. So we should identify all these people, their job roles, and the next step, we should identify the reasons to block the deal. So why could they block the deal? What actually what can trigger them or what are their motivation to block the deal. You should identify organization pain points so you can address your marketing message to their pain points. And you can also brainstorm unique selling proposition and unique selling amplifiers to deliver value and to focus on these blockage points so you can pinpoint to the benefits to these people so you can overcome their objections. And as well, brainstorm drivers for every buying committee member that can motivate him to push the deal. So you should think about how you can overcome the blockage points and what can you do to motivate these people to push the deal. So here you can see a buying committee example. You have a champions, you have influencers. So I made a screenshot from the existing project, but actually left only the information that I can share, but just to give you an idea. So you can see here champions, you see influencers, you can see decision makers, blockers, reasons to block. So you should put down all this information here: organization pain points, value proposition, and drivers. So you also put what can motivate the job roles every of the buying committee member, what can motivate them to push the deal further. So when you finish with this, you can define the buying process or customer journey. From my point of view, this is really the same. So the customer journey is the process how your customers buy the products or services like yours. So I assume that you already got the idea that you should also identify the buying process of every buying committee member. So you don't create a customer journey for only one job role, but if you have a buying committee, you should identify the buying process of every buying committee member. So you should think about the steps or stages when the decision makers and influencers and blockers join the buying process. You should understand where they join the negotiations, because this way you can influence this black hole consideration process, and you can armor your champion with content or with arguments that will help them to push the deal and help you to close the deal successfully. So to influence this black hole consideration process and to influence both decision makers, blockers, and influencers, you need to list out their concerns, objections, and doubts at every step. And let's see on the practical example. On the right side, you see the B2B champion customer journey example. And this is it's just an example which is not tied to any real project. So let's pretend that first of all, our B2B champion identifies a problem, and then he researches for possible solutions, and then he somehow finds your product or service. And this is a typical buying, so this is a description of a typical buying process. Then he wants to learn more about the product or the company. The next step, he wants to see the product in action. And he wants to see the testimonials and niche case studies that prove that this product works. Next step is what is called a bleeding neck, term I got from the Perry Marshall, which I really love. So by bleeding neck, I mean, do they have an urgent need? Because if they don't have an urgent need, they simply stop the research. And if they have a bleeding neck, they might consider other alternatives. So they want to see what are other service providers or in the market, or what are the other products they can use. And if after this additional resource they decide to stick to your solution, they want to be sure the product is the best fit in this category, and they want to compare it to other products and vendors. If you successfully pass the step, or let's say your lead successful, like for your success, for your luck, they just decided from their manual resource that your product is the best fit, they might ask for the proposal, and when they are asking for the proposal, they want to be sure there's a good ROI justification. So when they receive your proposal, they involve buying committee. Then if they get an approval, they involve legal, and after the approval, they purchase the product or service. And when they purchase after this, they want to get the maximum because like they were in charge of these investments and they want to prove to their boss that this was a good investment, so they want to get the maximum. And if somehow they succeed with your product, they want to leave a testimonial or recommendation. And if you had ever seen the stats by HubSpot, only 91% of salespeople ask for the only 11% of salespeople are asking for recommendation, while 91% of B2B leads eager to give a recommendation. So this is a typical example of the buying process of the customer journey, which is very far from the sales process I have shown you in the beginning of this presentation. And you see that we have a step where the champion involves buying committee, and on the left side you see an example of B2B decision makers. For example, the CEO, he receives a proposal from the champion. The next step in his buying process, he wants to see a comparison report with the alternatives, so he wants to be sure this is the best product or service provider. Then he wants to see the impact on their business, because they don't care about the tech stack, but they care about the impact on their business, and they want to see a ROI or budget justification. And also, they might want to get the opinion and the confirmation that the product service is a great fit from other decision makers, for example, from legal, from IT, from sales, from any other department. That's why I mentioned it. It's really important to understand the buying committee structure. And if he gets the opinion that the product is a good fit, he approves the proposal. And if he doesn't get the positive opinion, he rejects the proposal. And this is an example of the black hole consideration. So when you understand this process, when you understand the buying process of every buying committee member, you can influence this black hole consideration. So the next step in building a full funnel lead generation and sales machine is to define the steps to address the buying process. And here is an example. Let's pretend in our case how we can address all the buying process steps or customer journey steps. So it identifies a problem. Let's start with the right side with B2B champion customer journey. So it identifies a problem. We can use top of the funnel content targeting. We can use outbound outreach while sending our content to leads, webinars, search engine optimization. Research as possible solutions. We can use search engine or social media because, for example, our target champion might visit a specific niche community on Facebook and ask questions there. You can also help to find your product or service with the help of guest posts. That's why that's why I gave you a question: what websites, what blogs do your target audience regularly visits? That's how you can attract their attention. You can appear on the podcasts. You can also visit the events they're visiting. You can somehow contact with and work with influencers they're following, and so on. wants to learn more about the product or the company. So when you attract their attention, they want to learn more, and you have a website, you have LinkedIn profile, you need a niche positioning and social proof to build an initial trust. Want to see the product in action, so they want, for example, if you are selling SaaS, you can suggest them a product video on the homepage, you can suggest a demo call, you can suggest to sign up for a webinar and so on. Want to see the testimonials and niche case studies, so you can have some case studies or success stories or interviews with customers on your website. You can have a YouTube channel and record video interviews. Or if you are selling SaaS, it is also important to ask your customers to write a public testimonials on portals like G2Crowd or Capterra, where people can also, where leads might be seeking for external reviews of your product. So the next step, does he have a bleeding neck? And in case if he has, he might considering other alternatives, and this way you can send the comparison reports. And if you just already got the full funnel idea, so you might got a content of this lead, and you can add them to the lead nurturing sequence and send the comparison report. And if they stop research, you don't stop working with them, you don't stop building the relationship, you can add them to the lead nurturing sequence and further generating demand by step providing the best solutions, and show that how your product can generate additional value to their business. Wants to be sure the product is the best fit in this category, and want to see the comparison to other products of vendors. So again, you can see you can provide the reviews by influencers. You can use the G2Crowd or Capterra or Clutch reviews. Ask for the proposal and wants to be sure there's a good ROI justification. And from my point of view, this is a big mistake sales team makes. They just send this proposal without pinpointing to the ROI justification. So you can, with your proposal, you can send a ROI calculator, you can again send a comparison report, you can send a niche case study. And this is important because you know that on this stage, decision makers are joining the negotiation process, and like CEO, let's see the left side buying process by CEO. He receives a proposal from the champion, and with a proposal you already figured out they want to see a case study and USP amplifiers. They want to see the comparison report, so you send all the stuff, and they also want to see the impact on their business. That's why you are sending them the ROI calculator. And for example, a next step is to get approval from other departments. You can use, like for legal or for IT, you can use product or service certification. If it's just a very brief example of how it works, and they approve the deal. So what you can do, you can your lead just bought your product or service, and he want to get the maximum. He want to prove to the boss, to the CEO, that it was a good investment. So you need to help them. And on the stage, you use an onboarding. You can use some educational webinars. You should track the customer satisfaction index so customers are satisfied, because you know, like. In most cases, customer won't tell you that something went wrong, but they will be silent for weeks or months, and then they suddenly cancel the contract with your company and you lose a customer. So it's your duty to track the customer satisfaction and be in charge of this. And you also should take care about the last product process, about the expansion. So in this case, and getting the referrals, you can ask for the video interviews, you can ask for the case studies, you can ask to leave the public opinion on GT Crowd, on Capterra, and so on. So add these steps to address the customer journey of every buying committee member. The next step is developing your sales process based on the customer journey. So first of all, when I showed you a marketing hourglass conception, you saw that we have two different parts: marketing and sales parts, and you should be clear who and when you drive to the sales team. So that's why it is very important to define the qualification criteria, because if you publish some ebooks or some white papers to generate marketing qualified leads, and you ask only for the email, how you can qualify that lead? You have no idea about the qualification. And as well, before driving the lead to the sales team, you should agree on some engagement criteria. For example, this lead should visit like contact us or product page for several times, or this lead could sign up for some webinar, or could ask for a comparison report, depending on their buying process. And you should identify this criteria when you transfer the lead to the sales team. The next thing you should work on is to define actions you should be using to move the lead through the funnel. So when you know the buying process, you can step by step, for example, nurture them. You got the contact by delivering the ebook. The next step you can use is motivate the lead to join your webinar, and after the webinar you can motivate them to to schedule a call with your sales team. And after the sales team, if the lead was sales qualified, you can deliver the case studies and the comparison report and so on. So all the steps are aligned around moving the leads through the funnel. And as well, align the market and sales actions, because it's just a big problem when marketers don't align the activities around sales. So instead of driving leads to the sales team, they might suggest subscribing to another sequences, or I don't know, reading blog posts without suggesting to have a discovery call with sales tips. So this is a work, or this is a job of two teams to align the actions between themselves. So all the call to actions and all marketing materials that you should be delivering on the specific stage of the customer journey should be aligned to the next action, how you can move this lead through the funnel. So call to actions, sales enablement. So as for this, what kind of content your sales team might need and at what stage, this is what we have already discussed. It might be case studies, comparison reports, I don't know, ROI calculators, and so on. So all the content sales team might need to close the deals. And lead transfer conditions. So the criteria when marketing will be transferring the lead to the sales qualification call. Because you should not always wait while the lead will schedule a call with your sales team. If you'll see that there is engagement which demonstrates the interest in your product, for example, a lead visited your product page for several times and visited a contact us page and so on, then read a case study, this might be like a clear signal that this lead is ready, need to be sales qualified. Here's a brief description of Get Leader Consultant sales process which I use. So we have a Get Found, like inbound marketing. You see that I have several resources like niche guest posts on Sales Hacker, on smart insights and so on. I have a podcast called The System B2B Marketing. I work with world-known influencers like Matt Hines, like Amanda Stone, like Gaetano Dinardi, like Kieran Flanagan, and so on. I have a B2B marketers and founders community, which I run together with Ricardo Gikira. I have a huge LinkedIn network. I also run a workshop and give talks at conferences. Other activity is Outbound, or demand generation. I have a personal outreach based on accounts, website activity, on LinkedIn engagement. As well, I run content promotion outreach. And the next step in this, for sure, this sales process is based on the buying or the customer journey of my clients. So the next step is a website homepage where I use positioning, social proof, and next steps about get lead. Again, I have a bio, social proof, and next steps, and I have a products page where I have several so-called lead magnets, which help me to market and qualified leads. And if the leads aren't market and qualified, I delete them from CRM, and who are qualified, I add them to the lead nurturing sequence. And depending on their job role and vertical, I drive them both on working with me page or to the courses, educational courses. So on the work with me page, I use like the frameworks. I describe the frameworks I use. I have a social proof and clear process. And next step is an intake questionnaire, which helped me to sales qualify a lead. And if the lead wasn't sales qualified but fits the ideal customer profile, I add him again to the lead nurturing sequence. If the lead is sales qualified, I have a discovery call where I apply value qualification. I try to understand what impact I can make on their business. Next step is marketing audit and road mapping. So at this stage I use example of audit and of road mapping. So it's I use it as a case study, so the leads have a clear view on what the first step is looking like. So the next step after the marketing audit is a project plan, where I share with them a niche methodology or framework and the proposal. The next step is pilot project, deal expansion, and the case study. So this is how my sales process looks like, just to give you an idea of how to create your own sales process. The next step is developing lead nurturing, and this is an insight which must give you an idea why the lead nurturing is so important. At any given time, only 3% of your market is actively buying, 56% are not ready, 40% are poised to begin. So that's why it is really important to develop a lead nurturing program, because most leads aren't sales ready and you need to engage with them. You need to generate demand for your product, and you can do this with the help of lead nurturing program, but you need to define the actions and the content you will be sharing with them. You should define the length of the program, and you should define the re-engagement criteria. Again, when should your sales team call these leads? What should happen at your, or what should be a signal that this lead was re-engaged and it's time to call him again and qualify. And for sure, you should personalize call to actions to the customer journey stage and ICP matching. So here's an example. Define the engagement sequences. Like in my case, you see I have several types of sequences of I mentioned that I have some so-called lead magnets, like system marketing free course, like self-assessment, like LinkedIn book onboarding and B2B book onboarding. And if these leads, like in most cases, they aren't sales ready. After they because this is middle of the funnel content, they are transferred to the shadow newsletter, which is my main lead nurturing sequence. The length of it is around half, I assume is around 6 months, but I'm working to expand it. And I have a reactivation condition, so what I already mentioned, and you see that there are around 154 triggers that start these sequences, and that's how I try to build a relationship with my prospects. Next is defining the content and segmentation. So you should segment the content based on the customer journey stage and the content they already consumed, because it makes no sense to share the case studies you have already shared with this audience. You should think how you can deliver value and how can you move them further the funnel, what type of content might make them think about or consider your solution. And this is how you can, and for sure the segmentation, so you should provide different content to different market segments and different job roles, because it makes no sense to, like in my case, if I work with B2B SaaS companies and with B2B service providers, and these are two different groups, and it makes no sense to send this familiar content to both of the groups. Only in case if I deliver some top of the funnel content, like a podcast interview with an influencer, which is really create value for both segments, I can deliver it to both segments. And personalized call to actions, like you see in one, this is one email, and I have different call to actions which are shown depending on the vertical and job role criteria. So if you are a founder and you don't have a tech self-assessment exists, so you didn't pass through the self-assessment, which is a great demand generation tool. So you'll see this call to action work with me. Otherwise, you'll see the 120-second self-assessment, and if you are a marketer, you'll see a free course system B2B marketing. If you didn't, if you already passed through the course, you'll see the paid one course. So that's how you can personalize all call to actions and align them to the job roles, to the market segments, and to the customer journey stage. The 8th step is developing post-sales and expansion processes, which I talked about at the beginning. So let's back to our marketing hourglass conception. These are two last stages which are happening after the sales, after the deal was successfully won. So we need to help our customers to get the maximum of our product, because otherwise, if the customer doesn't see the value of your product or service, he will cancel with your company. And when you know the customer is satisfied, it's time to expand or generate referrals. So here's an example of post-sale service, how you can use it to this is an example from the real project. So after the deal won, you are sending the post-deal survey and you ask for the recommendation. Next is we are working on the pilot project, and you can ask for a satisfaction tracking, whether they are satisfied with team. After 14 days, you can ask for customer satisfaction index. You can ask to rate the team. So if you have a project team, you can ask to rate all the team members, and you can ask whether we can improve something. And you'll see an Airtable status, because we use Airtable to track this customer satisfaction process. I mentioned that if this process won't be documented, so it won't work in your organization. Next step, after the pilot project finished, we run a deep survey where we dive deeply and we try to enrich customer profile as much as possible, get some deep insights on their buying processes, so we can again polish our sales process. We ask about their customer journey, so we try to understand more what influences them, what influences their decision-making processes, and so on. Then when we have a long-term engagement, so the first milestone, we ask about the testimonial on clutch. So we have a testimonial template. In case if they refuse, we just ask them to provide a testimonial we can use on our website. And next step, we ask for a public case study. So this is an idea how you can create a post-sales service in your company. And when we finish with this, we expand inside this organization. The ninth step is setting up organizational resources for every step, because you can map all the buying and the sales process, but if you want to put a person who will be in charge of every step, this again won't work. So in this case, let's pretend it was just an example of buying process. So let's back to it. Let's back to the stage researchers possible solutions. Here are several people who could be in charge of this activity: inbound marketer, paid acquisition marketer, or depending on your organizational structure who it might be. And here's find your product service. It could be a biz dev, wants to learn more about the product of the company. Again, marketing and biz dev, want to see the product in action, sales manager wants to see the testimonial, sales manager, and marketing. So both people, sales manager is in charge of sending this content to the lead, while marketing is responsible for putting all these testimonials, case studies in on website or in content hubs, or also take care that these testimonials are on the public platforms. Wants to be sure the product is the best fit in the category, so marketing and sales manager against marketing can prepare this comparison report, and sales manager should send it. Ask for the proposal and wants to be sure there's a good ROI justification, so again marketing can create a ROI calculator and sales manager will send it. Involves buying committee, so on the stage you can also involve your C+ people like CEO, CTO, depending on the organizational structure, because you know sometimes peer-to-peer communication might help to close the deal successfully. Involves legal, you can involve legal from your side. Wants to get maximum from the product, it's could be so this on this stage you can, if you have a client success team, you can delegate this task to them. Otherwise marketing should be in charge, and as well wants to leave a testimonial, again client success or sales manager. So this is how you put down all the organizational resources, and that's how you'll have a good lead generation and sales process. And the last step is developing a full funnel marketing plan. So you should map out all the marketing activities you'll run and the goals. So depending on your business model, I will give you several screenshots how your marketing plans might look like. You should figure out the channels you'll be using, setting the experiments, describe the experiments. You should also be clear on what metric you are working, like activation or analytics or traffic or acquisition. What is the goal of this activity, what you'd like to improve, and evaluation. This is how you can prioritize your marketing activities, like importance, ease, and predictability, which is so-called PI formula, and you'll have a priority score, and responsible for sure who will be in charge. Or another example, you can also, if you have a let's say, complicated lead generation campaigns. Like if you run account-based marketing, you should plan on where you need both teams, marketing and sales team. You should plan and orchestrate demand generation campaigns. Like in this case, you see how the demand generation campaign might be created. So you create a niche case studies, and you pre-select tier 2 accounts, you adapt case studies and the proposal to the buying committee, you buy grabbers, you wrap up the parcels, and so it's just with the help of direct mail you try to generate meetings, and you involve sales team for follow-ups and so on. And this is a this is how the full funnel marketing approach works. So you take care of the control of the entire customer journey. You working with the customer on every stage, starting from the problem occurring inside your target accounts, in your prospects, and you also control the last steps like expansion and getting testimonials, and you have a clear view on what is working and what doesn't work. You have an idea what should be improved, what blockage points do you have, how you can solve them. You have an idea of the buying process regarding the concerns, regarding the objections and doubts your target audience might have, and you clearly understand where are the biggest drops inside your sales process and inside your lead generation process, and what you need to do to improve it. And that's how you can step by step improve your lead generation and sales process and create a quality sales and marketing machine. And if you want to discuss a full funnel marketing implementation, feel free to contact me at by sending email to andrei@getleader.com, or reach me out on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/azinkevich, and or you can learn more and apply here, getleader.com/consultant. So both options are good fit for me. Feel free to choose the one which is most convenient for you, and feel free to reach out and ask any questions, and we can then schedule a discovery call and see whether this framework, full funnel framework, might work for your company. Again, if you'll have any questions, feel free to reach me out and ask. Take care.